Here we are, Friday's Hot Topic, January 10th. It's not just your favorite store in the mall. It is the hottest topic of the day. 10 days into 10 days
Just,
into
whoa,
January.
whoa. You cannot make a hot topic ref. Does it even exist? I don't go to malls, Robert. Who goes to malls? Do you go to malls? After the mall?
There is actually one really functioning good mall right by me, but I don't go more than once every year or so. But hot topic probably
Okay.
exists.
All right. What's the hot topic? And who are you talking hot topics with?
All right, we're 10 days into January, and the transfers are the hottest talk of the town. You could say the hottest topic around. And to dig into this morning, morning kick around is happy to be joined by MLS and United States men's national team insider, Mr. Tom Bogert. Welcome to Morning Kick Around, sir. How you feeling?
Hi, Tom.
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys doing? Look at this. They have a little Asbury Park kit to make me feel at home. That was very thoughtful.
Yes, yeah. Rob usually asks me about the kit. He forgot to ask me this morning. I was going to highlight that I chose this specifically because Tommy Bogert was coming on. And shout out to Jersey, shout out to Sean Francis, shout out to Asbury Park. Tom, I know Rob wants to get right into this. I know you're a busy guy. We don't take up too much of your time. Rob, what do we want to ask Tom first?
Yeah, preseason 2025. How has it been compared to seasons in the past? Has it been your phone blowing up, or has it been kind of quiet so far?
Yeah, phone's been going nonstop. It was funny. I got a text from a friend who I respect a lot, and he's not wrong when he was like, "Is it me, or does the offseason feel just a little bit underwhelming so far?" And he was talking more about incoming transfers to MLS. And I read the text, and I was like, "Underwhelming? I've been staring at my phone for a month straight." I was like, who's it underwhelming for? But in that regard, it is fair. But there's just a billion things going on. There are a billion rumors and reports, fake, true, and somewhere in the middle that I feel like I'm always reacting to or asking about. And a lot of the times there aren't truths to it, but that's just the nature of the job.
So I guess, okay, I'll build on that. I do want to ask about specific things that have happened, that we know have happened. Things that still might happen, I guess, could be part of this too, Tom. But I guess, so that's interesting, right? Like, oh, it's underwhelming. Look, I see your feed. I go and I look at the transfer tracker, and I'm like, wow. Am I wrong in the sense that it feels as though there's a little bit more of this kind of taking not flyers, that's not the right word, but the international scouting seems to have picked up a bit, and clubs are being very aggressive in going out and getting some of these guys that are, you would call them from mid-tier leagues and places that maybe they're not Big Five because they can't afford those players, but they are being active internationally.
Yeah, the global transfer market and MLS's place within it continues to expand, honestly, every single window. The connections that get made just over time, the difference of perceptions from executives in South America and Europe change seemingly every year, where they're starting to slowly but surely have realized that MLS is a real serious league that has real serious players. And it's not just where David Beckham goes to retire or, insert the old retirement league tropes from the early 2010s, which was true back then. And probably almost still true, even as recently as 2017. But this league is unrecognizable from even 2019. Like what Atlanta United and LAFC started to do in those 2018, 2019 era, and it was like, oh my god, this is incredible. Well, there's 15 teams like that now, which is really awesome to see. So yes, the international scouting and the international relationships that help these deals get done and help, even just convince players, not even convince players to come, but even have it as an idea. Some of the examples for me is, let's talk about a guy like Neil McGuinness. He works for LAFC now. He was the head of recruitment at Celtic. He was the guy who signed Virgil van Dijk for Celtic. That's an executive that in the past didn't really come to MLS. I've talked to executives in Europe that work for real big clubs. They're not the sporting director at some of these clubs, but they're getting interviewed for front office jobs in MLS, and they're talking to me like, I want to come to MLS. Or lastly, the Columbus Crew, when they signed Lucas Elarayan, that was a very big deal. They signed him from Tigres. He was an awesome player. Tim Bezbatchenko when he was with Toronto FC, they played against Tigres in the Champions League. And he was talking about that deal after it was done, and even in the years past, like, he was like, that's not possible if I didn't get to meet and spend time with and become familiar with the Tigres executives, and same to me. So he's like, then when we were back in the market with real money in Columbus to spend big and we wanted to, it was an easy phone call and there was easy familiarity. And that's just how these kind of relationships and trusts get built to help grease some of these deals.
I do think that, international stuff usually gets more attention. There's more sizzle, I guess, for people. But obviously internally, there's some things that have happened. Already, we're kind of past some things like Campana going to New England, for example. But the big move recently is Jesus Ferreira, which I think you had reported was in the works. They finally got it past the line. It's done. Rob and I were talking about it. This feels like a roll of the dice for Seattle, and yet I guess I kind of get it. What first of all, what do you make of the value that Ferreira brings for Dallas? What do you make of it from a Seattle perspective in terms of how it works on the field?
So to start, like, the first macro point that I have is that I think, and I don't know this for a fact, so this is just conjecture, but I'm deducing that this means Seattle ownership wasn't going to give the Seattle Sounders front office real money to spend to add another designated player. And with that as the context, I really do love this move. If Jesus Ferreira, again, is son of former MLS MVP David Ferreira, who played for FC Dallas, so he came through the Dallas Academy. Hypothetically speaking, David Ferreira never comes to MLS, and Jesus Ferreira grows up in Colombia and is a product of a youth academy in Colombia. If he was putting up these numbers in Colombia, and then the Seattle Sounders just signed him, and let's just say it was a $3 million transfer fee instead of $2 million GAM plus a player plus whatever, we'd be like, oh my God, what a sweet signing. Like, this is such a cool player. But it's like, we know him, and we know what he isn't, more so with the national team than with MLS. Yes, he wasn't great in 2024. He dealt with injuries, and things became stale at Dallas. Both Jesus Ferreira's camp and FC Dallas, everybody understood it was time to move on this winter. All of that being said, I think if we just did like a blind taste test on these are the numbers for X players in whatever leagues, and there wasn't a little picture of Jesus Ferreira, I think Seattle Sounders fans would be out of their minds excited. Be like, who is this young forward, or this 24-year-old in-prime forward, that we're bringing in, who had all these goals and all these assists in a comparable league? And it's like, oh, it's Jesus Ferreira. Well, he's not better than Florian Balogun, so he stinks, right? And it's just like, I just don't agree.
That's a good point.
Just last night, you reported about Orlando acquiring a young Colombian in the Galaxy, signing an even younger homegrown player. Tell us a little about those players.
Yeah, so the LA Galaxy are signing 14-year-old Vicente Garcia to a homegrown deal. This is one that is going to start as an MLS Next Pro deal, but will become a homegrown deal. Don't know exactly when. These type of hybrid contracts, we're going to start to see so much more for players of Vicente Garcia's age. So in the past, it would be, you'd have to be an insanely special talent, that like Kevin Sullivan's of the world, to be signed at 14 years old, or you had to be somebody with international passports. So you could tell your team, if you don't sign us, we're going to go to Mexico, or we're going to go to Croatia or England or wherever the other passport was. Gaga Sonina, he was obviously an excellent, huge talent in the Chicago Fire system. He had a Polish passport, and he would have left if the Chicago Fire weren't going to sign him to deal. Like, that's just good agents work to get leverage for your client and everything, get the deal done. So Vicente Garcia at 14 in this new version of MLS with MLS Next Pro, yes, he has a Mexican passport. Yes, there's teams interested in him abroad. But the pathway to play for the second team, and your contract doesn't count against the first team roster limits to begin with, I think that's just a new wave that we're going to see more of, and that's probably even too far in the weeds to even go about, but it's something that I find interesting because I'm a dork. And then Orlando City are signing U22 initiative winger Nicolas Rodriguez. The young Colombian will join the club. He's not like a huge fee. He's a talented player. They're excited about him, but rest assured, this is not the Facundo Torres replacement. They are still in the market for a designated player with that spot. I've reported that they had a bid rejected for Alejandro Zendejas. That's not going to happen as far as I know, unless there's a big change of heart at Club America, because the manager, Andre Jardine, absolutely loves Zendejas. And the way it was framed to me when Botafogo was trying to convince Jardine to go to them and leave Mexico, it was, if Jardine leaves, we have a chance to sign Zendejas. But he stayed, so it's looking very unlikely.
Okay, I'm going to bring us sort of back to the Ferreira thing, because attached to this is the Paul Arriola situation, and we'd love to get an update from you on what you know there, because Seattle also interested in Arriola. And then we've also heard about you've reported, I think, and others on Alan Velasco, at least there being interest for a move to Argentina. I think Boca was the club mentioned.
Correct.
Velasco, in terms of what he's done, maybe hasn't quite measured up. Injury's a major part of that story. But there is this interesting thing of Latin American clubs coming in for players in Major League Soccer. Alan Pulido going back to Chivas, maybe slightly different because of his history there, but still there seems to be this thing that's happening. Can you give us a snapshot on why that's going on right now?
I think it just comes down to the perception of MLS and the quality of players that are even coming in to begin with, because the first way that MLS clubs started to mine some of these bigger countries, the countries with the more pedigree in South America, the Argentinas, the Uruguays, and then before that they've started to really get into Brazil now, was you weren't getting River Plate's top prospect. You weren't getting one of their top 7 talents, U21 talents. You were getting their 8th or 9th or 10th. And that was still very good. That was a necessary step. But then when it came time for that player to leave, River Plate was like, well, we never really thought that he was going to be a starter for us anyway, so we're not entirely interested in him now. Alan Velasco was one of the brightest young talents in Argentina when FC Dallas signed him for $7 million. Ezequiel Barco is another example. Again, it didn't really work out at Atlanta United, but because he was the top talent at Estudiantes, I believe was where he came from, with the club that he was bought from Atlanta, because he was that level of talent, he still was able to go back to River Plate for a decent fee, and Atlanta didn't have to, hold the bag on all of the $15 million that they paid for him. So I think that it has more to do with just a different level of talents that are coming to MLS, so that then Argentine clubs let's say Boca Juniors, they were probably interested in Alan Velasco when he left for FC Dallas. So this is a long-standing thing, and I think that has more to do with anything than different perceptions or whatever, right? All of the things I said at the top of the show can be part of it here, but the biggest reason for me is I think that they're just better players coming to MLS from South America.
Okay, so quickly on Areola, what's the status of that? And then I have another follow-up on the South American involvement, the market in general. But go ahead on Paul Areola.
Done is what I was told, just pending, final league approval. But that is viewed as it's just a when thing, not if, because they kind of had to go back and forth with the league and with all the clubs over some minor details. They changed those details. So as far as I know, it's done. Okay.
The other part of this is so with better players coming in, and then those clubs like Boca or River Plate or some of the Brazilian clubs going, oh, look, there's talent up there. They're not going to be prying away 22 and 23 and 24-year-old players from Europe, generally speaking. The price tags are going to be different. I get that. What does that mean economically in a general sense for Major League Soccer and the cash that comes from that direction and how it changes the market here?
It certainly helps. There's been a way station for some of these clubs, Talleres was one of them, where it felt like they were bailing out MLS teams on bad DP deals, or Austin FC are working on a deal to sell Sebastian Driussi to River Plate. If the rumored $9 million fee that's coming out of South, I don't have the fee confirmed or anything. If that $9 million fee is true, I would drive him to South America myself. Find a way to, if there's no flights going to Buenos Aires, find a way to drive him there, because that is ludicrous on a price to be able to get for a player who desperately wants to leave, and I think the club are ready for him to go too. So it's very good. Chivas, I thought Alan Pulido's contract was unmovable. I was like, oh wow, he's just gonna be, and again, I feel kind of being disrespectful to Pulido, but it is what it is. He's not available enough. He's not scoring enough because he's not available enough to be a designated player in MLS. And I was like, who in the world is going to pay him that contract? I think he's taking a pay cut to go to Chivas, but still, this is Reynoso goes to Tijuana. You look at FC Juarez is in and of itself the MLS misfits reunited. It was like watching Leagues Cup, and it felt like, I don't know, going to a bar on Thanksgiving Eve in your hometown, 6 years after high school, and it's like, oh, you're still here, Francisco Calvo? What's going on with you? It's very funny to see for us, but in the past that wasn't happening. You had to buy out these players. You had to or you just had to eat the contract for however many years if your ownership didn't want to buy it out. So that has been very, very good.
Which MLS club do you expect to be the most aggressive moving forward here in this off-season build-up period?
Atlanta United. because they have 2 DB spots open. Chicago Fire's in this conversation, Charlotte FC's in this conversation, but Atlanta United have 2 spots open compared to the other ones who just have 1. All 3 of those are the clubs that I'm watching, and even to go back again to the beginnings, the first questions I was answering is talking about maybe it felt a little slow. Well, it's been more of a slow drip since he set a new league record to sign Kevin Danke in December. And now we're waiting on Atlanta, Chicago, and Charlotte. And there's going to be so much money spent on their DPs in these 4 DP spots.
Does that so? I mean, what breadcrumbs have been dropped then? Right, but obviously we have the new brain trust. It's Garth reunited there in Atlanta with the guy he knows extremely well. What breadcrumbs have been dropped by them, by Garth, by whoever, in terms of where they might go with that, Tom?
Well, the breadcrumb that Atlanta didn't want dropped was MLSsoccer.com accidentally announcing that they signed a player from Celtic named Kyogo, a very Japanese international, very good player. Atlanta is definitely interested. It was just a pure mistake by MajorLeagueSoccer.com to announce that. So they're looking for a DP forward and looking for a DP winger. And I mean, it would probably be unfair to say I expect Atlanta United to set a new league record transfer, because that's just a ludicrous thing to say. But that's the ballpark that this team is going to be swimming in. Whether or not they set the record remains to be seen, but they are going to spend a whole lot of money on these 2 spots.
Okay, I know that you have to go. You're a busy man. We can see you texting away right there, Tom.
Sorry.
You're right there on camera. But again, and I think that all of this is much more interesting for hardcore fans than what I'm going to say now. But we want to throw just 2 names at you, and you can give us a likelihood grading if you want. Kevin De Bruyne, is it happening, or could it happen?
It very much could happen. Absolutely not this winter. We'll see in the summer.
Okay, Antoine Griezmann, is that happening at some point in the near future?
As of a couple months ago, it was still described to me as when, not if. I haven't gotten an update this winter, but LAFC try very hard to work in silence.
I mean, Griezmann's playing his ass off at Atleti right now, so kind of hard to get him out of there, I would imagine. All right, we will be respectful to Tom.
Sorry.
Robert, go ahead and send the man out.
All right, Tom Bogert, thank you so much for joining us. You can catch his writing at Give Me Sport, podcasting at SoccerWise HQ, and you can see him on the television at CBS Sports Golazo. Last word before you leave, which transfer rumor do you absolutely not want to see on your computer again?
Brandon, a player that is about to be sold for $10 million. I don't want to see somebody say his contract's about to be terminated and saying it with definitive nature. I'll leave it at that.
There you go. Brandon Vasquez getting, we didn't even talk about his move to Austin. Thank you very much, Tom. We appreciate it.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
Appreciate you. Be back soon.
Big thanks to Tom Bogert. So much to talk about. Didn't get everything in there, and he's about to go to his feet and break some news as we speak. It would seem so. Tom Bogert at Tom Bogert.
Can we stop the show right now? Rob, can we just end the show? I got to go check on Tom's feed. He's about to drop some breaking news. I got to do somewhere else. I can't. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. We got a little
segment 3. During segment 3 here, we're gonna just be hitting the refresh button on our web browsers. But thank you to Tom. Thank you for tuning in, Morning Kick Around viewers. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button. Morning Kick Around, 2 words, morning, and then kick around. Don't break it into 3 and get caught up in buying something from Chuck Norris. Just don't do it. Morning Kick Around, 2 words.